Hi, I'm Ethan. I love muzzleloading. Today we're taking a look at this original John Manton Son double barrel flintlock shotgun. Dating from circa 1835, this spectacular side-by-side shotgun from the late flintlock era is recorded on page 109 of the Mantons Gunmakers, Walker and Company edition, 1967, as a cased double-barrel 13-bore shotgun credited to N. Blank of the United States. Quote, the pans and pan covers are V-shaped, patent number 3942, and the hammers are marked John Manton Son, patent. The touch holes are lined with platinum. The escutcheon is engraved with the crest of the Earl of Plymouth. The serial number on the locks now appears above the mainspring on the inside of the plate, rather than the upper edge as previously, end quote. The browned Damascus barrels have a bead front sight, John Manton Son Dover Street, signed on the concave rib in ornate script, floral engraving that extends into the patent breeches, which have platinum liners. London proof marks are found on the bottom of the barrels. The matching serial number is marked on the bottom of the barrels and breech plugs, inside the forend, on the lower tang, and inside both locks. The locks each have the noted V-shape frizzen and pan with the patent marking on the front of the frizzen, a frizzen spring roller, scroll engraving, and a Hare on the tail, as well as John Manton Son patent signed below the pan. The forend and wrist escutcheons are silver, the ramrod entry pipe and trigger plate, each with stylized pineapple finials, and the furniture also features floral, scroll, and border engraving. A leather pad is fitted at the back of the trigger guard bow. The well-figured walnut stock has a smooth forend, a checkered wrist, and a 14 1/4 inch length of pull. While we don't have it with us here today, the original mahogany case contains a suite of accessories, including a leather-bound Hawksley flask, leather flint wallet, flints, spare screws, wad punch, double turn screw, and a small brush. When it comes to flintlock shotguns, especially side-by-sides, we don't see a name very often more prominent than John Manton. I'm excited to show you some of the details of this fine piece here today. Starting with our butt plate, moving forward, we have an iron butt plate here that is exquisitely engraved. Our butt plate tang at the top here is held in with a single pin at the top, much like we see in many hunting and fowling pieces of the flintlock era. This, however, features symmetrical leaf pattern engraving at the front, beautiful leaf pattern scroll engraving. And then at the rear of the tang, transitioning into the vertical portion of our butt plate here, we just have a beautiful symmetrical scroll pattern flowing through here with a border that terminates just above our upwardmost butt plate screw. Both butt plate screw heads are engraved, and the plate around the screws features their own circular border engraving. Moving forward here, I want to take note of the beautiful walnut stock here, presumably English walnut here. Fantastic curl, well placed in this stock to be where it can be seen back here in the buttstock. Our curl in the stock begins to relax as we move forward across the crest, where we get into our finely checkered wrist. Despite the buttstock itself and other aspects of this muzzleloader showing some signs of wear, the wrist checkering here is almost completely intact, very crisp still to this day. As we move forward into the breech and lock area here, I want to make a note of how elegant this transition is. We have a thickness in our buttstock, transitions along our crest to a fine point, something the English are known for in their crests, absolutely. We come to a narrow, slender wrist. Then we get to here the tail of our lock plates, and we start to see, again, almost compositionally like a painting. We see this begin to swell. And literally here, our lock plates are angled outwards as we go through the lock plates to accommodate the breech and thickness of our side-by-side barrels here. Again, it's a functional change. It's a functional transition in shape, but it is done elegantly. So we have just a beautiful curve flowing from the buttstock into our lock plates and then back down again as we go down through our barrels. Each lock is identical with identical serial numbers on them. When I say identical here, I mean down to the style and layout of the rabbet engraving at the tail of the lock. While not perfectly identical, while not perfect mirror images of each other, at first glance they appear to be, which is truly remarkable. The locks themselves are petite, very common for the late Flintlock era. By the time we're seeing arms like this being produced, ironically some of the best of the Flintlock era, the Flintlock is truly on its way out. Innovation is going to surpass it in a few years. But with that, we are at peak Flintlock design here. We have a rather large or long lock plate with this piece, but when we look at the cock or hammer, the pan and the frizzen, look at how small that they've gotten over the years. This is very common for English locks of this period, especially for a Manton touched lock like these here. We have beautiful graving throughout here. I love the hare or rabbet engraving at the tail of the locks. We have engraving on our top jaw here. Beautiful scroll patterns behind our hammer. Even the rearward or frontward facing, I should say, face of our frizzen features Manton engraving. Pulling this back to half cock, you can see possibly a little bit better the V-shaped priming pan that we have here. Instead of a flat surface across the top and a bowl underneath, this V-shaped pan really concentrates the priming powder. Because we have such a narrow priming pan on these locks, we also have a narrow base of our frizzen here, or pan cover, I should say. When closing this frizzen, you can see here, this frizzen has a lot of negative space around it. It's only designed to interact with our flint and cover that V-shaped pan. And when we're talking about this kind of design now, we get into, again, we're in a late stage flintlock development here. And in fine sporting arms like this one, you're going to start seeing lock designs and breech designs like this, where we have designs developed to try to combat the environment, primarily moisture when out hunting. There are several designs through the late Flintlock period. Some are more internal, some are more external, like this, but we have this entire breech assembly here designed, one, to get your priming powder as close to your main charge as possible with this patent breech, where we have our touch holes inset quite far into our barrels, really just about halfway into each of our barrels here. But we also have this design here that's designed to pull any rain or moisture that could be coming from the sky out around our frizzen pan, making it extremely difficult for any of that moisture to get into that priming pan and thus affect our charge. We know through historical documentation that leather covers, using your armpit, there's been a million things through the Flintlock era to try to keep moisture out of your pan. This is one of the most gentlemanly executions of that theory. Before moving on to the barrel, I want to touch here on the lock plate mortise, how beautifully executed it is and how subtle it is. We see a variety of executions of this kind of carving through the Flintlock era here, but this is so light. When looking at the lock mortise carving, it looks as if it is a 16th or 32nd or 64th of an inch above the wood, but when you run your finger across it, you can really tell that it's pronounced and defined. Just crisp, elegant. On the underneath side here, we have a trigger for each barrel, for each lock. And again, much like our tang and our butt plate, our trigger guard itself is beautifully engraved. We have a pineapple engraved motif here at the front. Although it is not checkered like a pineapple, internally it has beautiful leaf pattern engraving. Our trigger guard is held on with 2 screws, one at the front, just forward of our primary bow, and then one towards the rear. The bow of the trigger guard is still a bright polish, just to make a note of that, and features beautiful engraving throughout. Into the forestock here in the wood, you can see some more signs of wear. Our barrel key extension, made of silver on either side, shows signs that there was some light engraving possibly at one time, but that is worn, showing us that Despite its beauty and the high quality of this entire piece, it has seen some use, which is fantastic. These arms were meant to be used and meant to be hunted with. I think, that's what they want to do. We have a reflective floral, in a way a pineapple motif here at our entry pipe, but it is elongated. We should have some pineapple checkering, perhaps a pineapple still on the plant. Our forestock terminates about 8 inches forward of the locks with our ramrod entry pipe before transitioning into the barrels. On the concave barrel flat here, we have the John Manton Son signature. The Damascus through this piece is just gorgeous. It's tight, it's crisp, just wonderfully done. This still looks like you could take it out and hunt with it today. We have a silver bead front sight on these 13-bore barrels. A nice little note, a beautiful little highlight on the forend there. On the underside, our ramrod looks to be ebony or another kind of dark wood. Our ramrod pipes, both the middle and forward one, are of what I believe to be similar or the same Damascus as we see in our barrels here. All the coloring lines up. There are no engraved markings or wedding bands on these ramrod pipes, however. We have a brass tip at the end of the ramrod that looks like it has seen some polish in its day. Flipping around to the other side, you can see the mirror-like resemblance to our right-handed side. Just beautiful. Back here in the buttstock, however, you see a little bit of variation on the curl seen on the other side. Overall, just a beautiful piece. Beautiful engraving, beautiful execution. The kind of thing that many of us now expect from the Manton name. And I imagine this is very similar to what folks during Manton's time expected from his arms. I'd like to thank the Rock Island Auction Company for giving me the opportunity to share this wonderful piece here today with you. If you'd like to see more high quality photos and videos of antique arms just like this one, I encourage you to visit the Rock Island Auction Company YouTube channel to learn more. Once again, I'm Ethan. I love muzzleloading. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.